Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
53, Mike. Episode 53 of The Last Round. And we don't have a guest this week. We had a guest. We talked about it right before we came on air. We had a guest for the last maybe 5 or 6 weeks in a row.
Yeah, you just stuck with us, fans. You just stuck with us.
And now it's this week. It's just us. It's just us. So if you want to turn off your podcasting up and not listen to us, damn it.
Yeah, if you wanted to listen to someone making any sense, just turn off.
Just turn it off. Just turn it off. Thanks again, guys, for listening to episode 53 of The Last Round. And once again, I'm Danny Z, along with my co-host, Michael Shepard. 50-50 fight this past weekend on ESPN, light heavyweight. I mean, like, it was unfortunate that, like, you know, they don't have, like, obviously the name recognition that, you know, they should have for the fight of this magnitude, because it was a 50-50 fight. And it was on ESPN. It wasn't on the Plus, on the app. It was on ESPN. Yeah. That was big. But that was good for them, good for Top Rank, and good for the sport. I worked out. So Artur Beterbiev, I messed that up, gets the 10th round TKO over the Nail, Gvozdyk. Both undefeated fighters at the time. And Beterbiev just overpowered him towards the end, towards the latter half of the fight, of course. And, I mean, if we go back to our picks last week, I picked the Nail, and obviously I lost. What happened?
It was an interesting fight because I think going into the fight, most people looked at Beterbiev and thought he was kind of one-dimensional. And then when the fight started to progress, you could see that looking back to his amateur days, you know, he was very skilled. He'd been in there actually, I think, 10 years previous with the Nail. He'd also fought Kovalev back in his amateur days. So, you know, he could box. And I think, you know, in his previous 14 fights, he didn't necessarily need to. He just kind of went in there and mauled guys, just overpowered them. You know, he can take a good shot. He's got that, you know, James Bond villain-looking, you know, face. He just powerful guy. And I was impressed. You know, he showed that he could make little technical adjustments throughout the fight to get to Golovkin, you know. So it was a very interesting fight. You know, I think you could see a lot more skills than he was given. No.
And the Nail was actually up on, I think, 2 or 3 scorecards at the time of the stoppage, right? And I think maybe 2 or 3 rounds before that, they went to the CompuBox stats, and I think they were separated and landed punches, but I think 3 or 4 punches. Like, it, you know, by that point, you really understood why this was a 50-50 fight. You know, the Nail came in with, I think he had the WBC light heavyweight title, right?
Yeah, because he beat Adonis Stevenson.
Right. And then Beterbiev had the IBF light heavyweight title, so obviously it was a unification fight. And I think up until the first time when Gvozdyk went down, the Nail went down. Before that, I think it was, you know, it was obviously a chess match, and even after he went down the first time, he still got some action in. But I think the Nail, like I mentioned earlier, was just overwhelmed by the stamina of Beterbiev. Like, he just kept coming and just didn't stop, and he still was able to carry his power into the later rounds.
And I really liked the shot, the kind of the straight right to the body, the Beterbiev coming.
That was nasty.
You know, he's just powerful.
Nasty.
He was just powerful. And then anything that the Nail threw back at him, he just walked through.
Yeah.
It was kind of like one of those baddies that you'd get on a computer game, just where you keep hitting it, and it just keeps coming. And there's nothing you could do. And it looked like...
Was it the final boss?
Was it like round 9 or 10 where the Nail was in the corner with Teddy Atlas?
Yeah.
And he looked like defeated. And
yeah.
Teddy had to give him kind of like a motivational speech.
That pep talk he always gives.
Yeah, that little pep talk.
We are firemen. We are firemen. No, you're right. I noticed that time when he was in the corner too, was that you can kind of see it in his face. Like, obviously he was like losing stamina, obviously going through 12-round fight, but you can kind of just read it in his face. He's just like, man, like this guy just isn't stopping.
Just like the Terminator. He's just kept coming and coming and coming. There's nothing he could do. And he looked defeated. And I think at that point, if Teddy Atlas wasn't there, I think the Nail would have given up. I think
you think
he would have just thrown in the towel. He looked defeated.
Go into that, because there was some criticism that Max Kellerman was obviously on the broadcast and in some form or fashion, and there were some people online who complained about that. He said that the Nail quit in his corner, essentially. Like, he pretty much said he quit in his corner, essentially, even though it was a TKO. And I don't agree with that. He might have looked defeated. Yeah, like, if you just kind of read his body language and stuff, and then, based off of the pep talk that Teddy Atlas was giving him and stuff. But, I mean, I don't think it's fair to characterize him as that he quit. I don't think he quit. He still got up. He went out there. And yeah, he just got stopped, and the referee jumped in, and he ended up going down 3 times, but he didn't quit. It's not like he didn't come out of his corner in between rounds. So, I mean, what did you think about that? Because obviously that was a situation that hit a nerve with a lot of fans about Max Kellerman saying that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he didn't quit because he went out for the next round and was dropped 3 times. But the way I think you should look at it is that old dilemma. Do you kind of give in and live to fight another day, or do you go out on your shield?
Yeah.
And especially in the climate that we've had over the last few months, where we've tragically had 3 boxers pass away, I think everyone, especially now, would be
right. I understand. Yeah.
I've lost the fight, even though he was ahead on two scorecards. Maybe he didn't feel that like that. He did go out. And he could have got on his bike. Used his jab and maybe have won those last rounds and taken the victory 2 scorecards to 1. But you don't necessarily know that.
You think if he actually did that and he was able to get on his bike, as we say, you think he would have still pulled the decision? Maybe a split?
He could have pulled a split because he was ahead. If he got on his bike, just kept jabbing and jabbing and jabbing, he could have taken it. That's why sometimes boxers want the open scoring. He could have looked, seen he was ahead. That might have surprised him.
I don't like open scoring.
No,
but I understand where you're going. I understand where you're going.
And then he could have gotten his bike, but it wasn't one of those fights. Essentially they just kind of, especially towards the end, just got into the trenches and you were just letting go. And Beterbiev slowly but surely just grinded him down.
So Beterbiev connected on 161 of 515 total punches for 31% connect rate, while the Nail connected on 118 of 614 for a 19% connect rate. And I think obviously the last 2.5 rounds or something like that, because the Nail went down. What was the first round he went down in?
He went down 3 times in round 10.
Okay. So like right before like the 9th and 10th round, I would say up until from the 1st to the 8th, they were essentially neck and neck in a sense. It wasn't until maybe that, like I said, the 9th and then the 10th where Beterbiev's stamina just kicked into a higher gear, and he just didn't stop coming. And I want to pose this question, is that if the Nail, because obviously you can see there was a stamina problem in some form or fashion, and he just he couldn't combat the constant pressure from Beterbiev because he just kept coming and coming. If for some reason the Nail had worked on his stamina, or for some reason had a better sense of stamina, would it be a different outcome?
The thing is, it's one of those where, did he have bad stamina, or was it just those constant body shots just essentially put money in the bank for Beterbiev in those later rounds? He just wore him down.
Yeah. So
it depended on how you look at it, but I think, going into the fight, I picked Beterbiev. I just thought he may be too big and too strong.
Beterbiev.
So I don't think so, because personally I think it was more that he just wore him down. I think the constant pressure, the constant, because when they were in close, he would lean on him and stuff like that. And I think everything that he did just essentially just wore him down.
Who was Beterbiev? Oh, GSP. He was training, or he was friends with George St. Pierre.
Yeah, in the preview show, they showed him together in like a cafe.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting because, you wouldn't think about that because, GSP is like French or something like that, right?
Like French Canadian.
Yeah, so that was interesting. But ultimately, Beterbiev unifies the WBC and IBF light heavyweight titles. So I don't think there's any dispute to say that he is not the man at 175 pounds. He is the man at 175 pounds.
And the man also called out Kovalev the day after on social media.
Well, they asked him after the fight too, like, who do you want next? There's Bivol, there's this or that. I mean, like, obviously I think in terms of name recognition, maybe money, I think Kovalev would be the money maker in that division.
Take a huge fight back to Russia.
Yeah. Imagine that. I think that's where your money's at, especially if you want to maximize the profit. And obviously Canelo's name is in the mix just because he's fighting Kovalev, but I don't think Canelo is gonna. I think he's even mentioned in interviews, or he's kind of hinted that he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, do this one fight. He's not like, and I'm not saying just that Canelo doesn't have the heart of a warrior, because obviously the guy does. He's down to fight anybody. But I think even he knows, like, okay, I'm not gonna get in the ring with like a Bivol or like a Beterbiev and stuff like that. Like, first of all, like, they don't have the name recognition. There's really no money there, even though Canelo's the money man. And second of all, like we mentioned before on the show, high risk, low reward. That's them. He might have 2 belts now, and he's a little bit more known, but he's still a high risk fighter with a low reward from the financial side.
Yeah, I agree. I think Beterbiev.
And Canelo's just too small.
Yeah, I think Canelo's going to be like just a hit and run. He's going to go in, fight Kovalev,
do his thing.
I think most people think he's probably going to win. He'll drop back down in the divisions. That belt will be left open. So, essentially you could see like a Beterbiev and Kovalev for the WBC, IBF, and maybe even the WBO.
Yeah.
Because that'll be vacant. Canelo just goes, wins it, drops it again.
What do you think about a Beterbiev-Bivol matchup? Because they had said, because obviously Bivol fights on DAZN, Beterbiev's on ESPN, top-ranked guy. But they've said, Eddie Hearn has said, even Bob Arum has said that Eddie Hearn is willing to bring Bivol over to ESPN for a unification fight or some type of world title fight. I mean, which obviously makes sense because it's not like essentially Bivol's moving the needle at DAZN. So, like, I think Bivol, it needs to be open to go to other networks.
I think that fight would be similar to this fight in terms of this was a huge fight for people who kind of know boxing.
Yeah.
So a Beterbiev against Bivol, same sort of thing. People who know boxing, it's going to be a great fight, but it's not going to get that many eyes just because it's not a huge name.
Right.
Like we touched on last week, Bivol for some reason just tends to just want to go through the motions and win round after round after round.
Right.
He's not going to go in there and seek to destroy, which unfortunately it's sports entertainment. And if he doesn't start doing that, then he's not going to have the career in terms of cash that he could have. He could unify this whole division.
Yeah.
But not earn a lot of money because people don't want to see him.
No, you're right.
Which would be unfortunate.
If you look at it this way, it's also like Usyk. Usyk unified the entire cruiserweight division.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, he might have had all the belts and he was a man at that, but it's not like he was making Canelo money and stuff like that. Like, if you see somebody with all like, oh, he has all the belts, he's probably making a ton of money. I mean, obviously he's doing well.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing decent. But just because you have all the belts and stuff like that, like, it doesn't mean that you're going to make $20 million a fight, not even $10 million a fight, maybe even 5. I don't know, just depending on what it is.
Yeah. A prime example with that would be Conor McGregor in the UFC.
Yeah.
He's not the best fighter in the UFC, but he commands the most money.
Yeah.
Just because of his entertainment.
Yeah, because people tune in. I mean, at the end of the day, and, whether people like it or not, these sports, MMA and boxing, they're businesses.
Yep.
They're businesses. I mean, even to a big extent, baseball, basketball, they are too and stuff. They depend on fans and television contracts and stuff like that. But with MMA and boxing especially, like if you're moving the needle, like another prime example, Adrian Broner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he commands.
Adrian Broner,
yeah.
he I mean, whether people like it or not, he moves the needle.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they keep putting him out there and stuff like that. Like, you can't tell me that he didn't get that Pacquiao fight because it's not like he doesn't move the needle. Like, from a competitive standpoint, Broner did not deserve that fight against Pacquiao.
No.
But they know that in terms of pay-per-view wise and attention, that it was going to garner attention. So, and I mean, yeah, it did. It got a decent amount. Obviously did what? I think it did 500,000
Yeah, it did good numbers, because people tune in to either see Broner win because they like him and they like the madness that surrounds him, or they want to see him laid out on the on the canvas because they can't stand him.
So I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, I think the nail's going to be fine. I think he'll be back within the title contention picture within 2-3 fights. He's still a young guy. I think he's the younger of both of them, right? He's younger than Beterbiev.
Yeah, Beterbiev is just one of those that's had. I think he's like 34 years old and just not had that much of a career so far. No one wants to fight him.
So I think the nail's still going to be back, and he's still going to be a threat to a lot of people. So, Beterbiev, I think they're saying that he's going to fight the IBF mandatory or something like that. But I hope a unification between him and Bivol down the line is what we're looking at. And then maybe even Kovalev, who knows? Depending on how the Canelo fight goes. We'll see. Also on that card, Luis Collazo is unable to continue after a cut against... Okay, you're taking the name again. Do it. Oh, yeah. See, now you guys stumped. For the first time ever.
Abdukarov? That's what I'd guess.
Abdukarov. Is this another Ukrainian guy? Russian?
Yeah, he's another Eastern European. They're taking over.
There's so many vowels in that name. Luis Collazo, who's obviously... Luis Collazo's like one of those guys for Top Rank. It's just like they like he's like the go-to, like, hey, we need like some type of a name and to kind of fill out the card.
He had a little purple patch though because he had 3 victories over Sammy Vasquez. That kind of
That's true.
He was the B side and managed to turn it around. Brian Perella and then Samuel Vargas, and then obviously ran into the undefeated Abdukarev, I believe is how you say it.
So Abdukarev got won by scores. The fight was stopped obviously in the 10th round, at 2 minutes and 3 seconds, and Abdukarev got scores of 99-91, 98-92, and 97-93. And obviously, like we mentioned, Collazo was unable to continue following an accidental headbutt in the final round. It was a 10-round fight. It wasn't a 12-round. It was a 10-round fight. But I mean, Collazo's still there. Like I feel like I told you, like I just mentioned, that's like Top Rank's like go-to guy. Like, hey, we need somebody to fill out the card, and Collazo's, enough. I feel like him and Robert Guerrero are like in a similar position in their careers right now. They're just kind of like, you're gonna pay me, I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because with Luis Collazo, he's one of those guys that was always in shape, always in the gym. He'd kind of turned his career around a little bit, and I don't know whether is that the last time we're going to see him. He didn't really look. So. He didn't really look too good in that fight. Nearly lost every single round. I thought when I was watching it, he's one of those guys that you kind of see Top Rank were actually hoping that maybe he wouldn't, so they could stick him in with Terence Crawford because they just don't have anybody on that side of the road.
And we'll touch on that news too, because obviously Terence Crawford's fight was just announced within the last week or so. So we'll touch on that too. But moving on, this Saturday, the 26th of October, from the O2 Arena in London on DAZN. We got to go to the O2, man. Like that's a bucket list thing right there. Have you been there?
O2, no, not for fights. No.
What? Well, you've been there for some type of event, right?
Maybe a concert or two.
Okay.
It's been a while. I haven't been home for 5 years.
That's true. You're not welcome back anymore. Forget it.
It doesn't seem like it.
Forget it. Another 50-50 fight. Back-to-back weekends of 50-50 fights. Josh Taylor, 15-0, goes up against Regis Prograis, 24-0. The WBA and IBF and WBC Diamond, technically it's just a WBA and IBF World Championship title belts are on the line in a unification matchup.
And the Muhammad Ali Trophy.
Oh, this is the final. This is the final as well.
I don't know whether it's been confirmed, but I believe Ring Magazine were talking about
the lineal?
Sticking up the Ring Magazine title?
Maybe. 140 pounds?
So, I believe so.
I mean, this, like we said, another 50-50 fight. Like, I've seen people go back and forth, like, I think Prograis is going to take it. I think Taylor's going to take it. I don't even know who's going to take it. Let's go to your opinion, Mike. Who is going to take it?
It really is a 50-50. It's a clash of styles. You've got Josh Taylor, the more of the traditional boxer, I would have said. Fleet of foot, comes in on different angles. And then you've got Regis Prograis, who's, I would say, more of a pressure fighter, likes to come on the inside, heavy-handed. It's going to be a really, really, really good fight. I personally, I'm going to go with the home guy, I'm going to go with Josh Taylor. I think that if he keeps him at range, just doesn't let Prograis come in and, apply the pressure, I think he could take it. The only problem is he has that Amir Khan syndrome.
That's what I thought.
Because if you go back to the fight against Baranchek, I don't know whether he just didn't show him any respect and wanted to please the fans because he was at home. I just don't hope he just gets dragged into a war. I think it's one of those things where he's going to need some work for his corner team to just kind of, slap him, put him back into, shape and just tell him, like, hey, box from the outside, box from the outside. You don't need to get drawn into a fight. And he's just a fighter. He's just one of those guys like Amir Khan that as soon as he gets clipped once, he just wants to stand and bang. And if he does that with Prograis, then it could be an early night.
That crowd is going to be hot, especially for Taylor.
Well, actually, is this the main event or is Chisora the main event? After Chisora did that little thing.
No, I think Taylor. That's right. I totally forgot about that. No, but I think that crowd is going to be hot, especially for this fight.
Yeah,
it's going to be hot, and they're obviously going to be on Taylor's side because they're obviously on his home turf essentially.
Not so much over here, but if you look at the top 3 fights, it's. For the British perspective, you got Derek Chisora Price, 2 homegrown fighters,
Ricky Burns, Lee
Selby. So it's going to be a packed out crowd. It should be a good night over there.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun night of fights over there. They're going to definitely have a good time. Do you pick Taylor?
I think Taylor over 12. I don't know whether Taylor's a big enough puncher to put Prograis away.
All right, I'm going opposite. I'm going Prograis. He stops him in the 8th. I'm doing it. And even then, that's like a soft prediction. Even though it's like in your face, like eighth round stoppage, I classify it as a soft prediction.
I think it's definitely a 50-50 fight. Like everyone like me and you've picked opposite. When you look on Twitter and you look at the other reviews, it just tends to be, people are just going all different directions. But would you say the winner of this, though, is the top guy in the 140 division? Because obviously you've got Jose Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez. I mean, I think that Ramirez just unified against Mo Hooker in Texas. Oh man. And then I think depending on the performance, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Like if one of these guys, if Taylor or Prograis respectively dominates the other, or if like it's just kind of like one of those like performances, like hey man, you put, like you had heart, or I don't know. It depends on really the style of the performance. I think that you have. I know people are gonna say like, oh, Ramirez is still a top dog. Well, as of right now, this moment, Ramirez is a top dog. He is, but I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea to insert the winner of this fight because they're also going to be a unified champion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a bad idea to insert them into that Ramirez conversation. Like, okay, who's the top dog at 140?
In my eyes, you've got obviously Josh Taylor, Regis Prograis, Jose Ramirez, and then I would say just on the outside of that, because me and you both said Jose Zepeda we thought beat Ramirez, and
you're right.
I would say he's the fourth dog. He just beat Jose Pedraza when we were there.
Yeah, I think Zepeda. Like of course that's how you look at any. That's how people look at any type of weight class. The world champs, obviously the dudes, the guys, the men at those divisions. But for example, like you mentioned Zepeda, you can't count him out. He's still there in the mix. Just because he lost to Ramirez on the scorecards, it doesn't mean like he's not in the mix. Like,
it was 2 fights ago.
It's just like a Sean Porter. Like Sean Porter, like he's been a world champion and stuff, but like people for some reason like they kind of dismiss Sean Porter to an extent.
I think his style.
It's his style. Even though like all these guys he's been in the ring with, like Kell Brook, Errol Spence, most recently, Adrian Broner. Obviously he beat Broner. Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia and those guys, like. I guarantee you if you ask all of them, like they all might say arguably that Sean Porter was probably the most toughest fight they've ever had just because of Sean Porter's style, but because like Sean Porter doesn't really have that signature win. I mean, maybe you can call Danny Garcia the WBC title. perfect example was how many people picked Spence before the fight. Like, oh yeah, Spence is going to mop the floor with him and stuff like that. Like, no, that was never going to happen. That was never going to happen just because of Porter's style. Like, you know, Thurman had a hard time with him. Brooke had a hard time with him. Danny Garcia had a hard time with him. You know, just because Spence had the hype behind him, he is a great boxer, but it doesn't mean that he was going to dominate and knock out Porter in like 2 rounds. So I think that it's a kind of similar, you know, a similar relationship in that regard. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think those 4, and we probably won't, if we could get a little round robin, you know, Taylor Prograis, Zepeda, you know, against Ramirez again, and then, you know, they just keep intermingling, then I think the 140 division.
You think Top Rank would put Ramirez against Zepeda again?
Maybe not straight away. Maybe Zepeda because, well, look, Zepeda beat Pedraza, and it was only, 2 fights ago that Pedraza ran Lomachenko so close that people said he beat him.
Yeah.
You know, and they were saying, oh, Lomachenko's over the hill. He's not what he was. And then Zepeda goes and deals with him pretty easily, and no one says anything.
You're right.
So to me, I think that was a standout performance for people, you know, in the boxing community. They kind of watched it and took notice of that. Because I thought he beat Ramirez. I thought it was close, but I thought, you know, there was a little bit of home cooking. He was making so much money up in Fresno for Top Rank that, you know, he was going to have to knock him out to get a draw.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't be surprised I don't know if Top Rank wants to run it back with Ramirez and Zepeda, even though they might, because like Zepeda's obviously been fighting on Top Rank cards and he just beat Pedraza and stuff like that. So they're still keeping him around that, you know, that opportunity, of course. Because, obviously, you know, boxing politics, I don't see Ramirez unifying with the winner of Taylor Prograis this weekend anytime soon. Like, I would say there's at least maybe 3 more fights.
Probably, just because of the politics.
Yeah, maybe 3 more fights after this before we might see a unification matchup between Ramirez and the winner of Prograis Taylor. And like I said, even before then, I could see Ramirez rematching Zepeda, which Zepeda deserves it.
No, I think he definitely deserves it. You know, the guys are young enough. You got Ramirez at 27, Prograis 30, Josh Taylor's 28, and Zepeda's 30. So, you know, they've got time on their side that they can go around.
And even Broner's saying he's fighting at 140 still. Like, even like, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them fights Broner or something like that. Just because Broner is a name, he is going to, you know, give you that extra comma in that paycheck. So, just because of the ratings. So, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing, you know, put Ramirez against Broner.
I could see that.
Put Ramirez against Broner, yeah. and put it in Southern California.
The problem with Broner is he's heavy-handed, and if he turns up on the night, he could shock you.
No, you're right. Like, that's the thing with him. Like, even though he keeps disappointing people in all of these fights, especially the Mikey Garcia fight and all that stuff, like, for some reason, like, he still kind of has that type of X factor, like, that he might pull it off. He might. Even though he's been disappointing in the last couple fights he's had, like, he is heavy-handed.
As soon as he gets to that point in a fight, I think, where he realizes, I don't think I'm going to win this.
Yeah.
He just kind of goes on his bike, goes into his shell.
Yeah.
And just doesn't really throw much anymore, you know, which is kind of...
He did it for the hood.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
He did it for the hood. But yeah, 50-50 fight this weekend. It's going to be an exciting card, exciting main event. That's definitely like one of those cards you see, you're just like, man, I wish it was there. Because that looks like it's going to be a fun night for that crowd right there.
And for us over in the US, it's on a good time, middle of the afternoon.
That's true. You know,
so we get that.
I feel bad for you guys. Like when we would have pay-per-views over here, and they would, like, you know, the ring walk times were like at 4 a.m. or something like that. Like,
we used to just make a night of it though. We'd go out to the bars and then
come back and watch the fight.
And then come back to someone's house.
Is that really how it was?
Yeah, that's what we used to do. Yeah, that's what still goes on, I guess. You know.
So you guys would go to the bar at what, like 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock or something like that?
12 in the afternoon.
Oh God!
Watch all the soccer. Watch all the boxing, and then stay up, go to someone's house, or some bars would have it on, and then you just be.
Wait, is there really bars open at like 4 a.m. to have those fights on and stuff like that?
Yeah, some are, but then you get I lived in a small town, so you'd get lock-ins.
Yeah.
At some bars where they'd just kind of close it and you could watch it there or go to a friend's.
Oh, man.
And then you'd fall asleep and miss it anyway. You have to wake up in the morning.
I could. Oh, man. I can't even imagine that. That's wild. That's freaking wild. Also on that card, like you just mentioned, Derek Chisora, who complained at the initial kickoff press conference that he wanted to be the main event. So I guess we're going to find out on Saturday who the main event is. Goes up against David Price. Chisora was originally slated to fight
Joseph Parker.
Joseph Parker until he was bitten by a spider.
Yeah.
What the hell? What what kind of story is that? Like I remember when I saw the news that he was out, like he had some injury. I was like, oh, okay, he probably got hurt in sparring or something. Like, oh, he got bitten by a spider. What? Spider-Man? What the hell's going on around here?
Because what? It's funny, his last name's Parker.
That's true. Yeah, Peter Parker.
Yeah.
That's true. I know. I never thought about that. Are you Marvel? Is it Marvel or DC? Spider-Man? I think it's Marvel. I might be wrong. All those fans out there are just gonna be pissed off at me.
That's an intriguing fight, though.
It is.
Because Derek Chisora recently split from Dave Caldwell as his trainer and supposedly has been training himself for the last few weeks. And we all know Derek Chisora is kind of a madman. So has he even really been training? Has he been able to pull himself up for this fight? Because David Price, was coming off just really some British level wins against like Dave Allen.
Yeah.
And then the Cash Ali fight where Cash Ali bit him. So, and David Price was scheduled to fight at a later date. So he's had to cut camp a little bit short. And we know how David Price seems to struggle into the later rounds. So this is going to be, it's either going to be an all-out war, or are you just going to see two heavyweights that are in the ring that aren't fit, that are going to last 3 or 4 rounds, and it's going to turn into a cuddling match.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm expecting, really. Like, honestly, that's exactly what I'm expecting. Like some type of cuddling match.
Price is normally good for 4 or 5 rounds, and then he kind of like just, his gas tank goes.
The stamina goes away.
He's too stiff. It's like when he throws his punches, he's too stiff, and it just takes all of his energy out of him. Instead of being loose and just throwing punches, he kind of like mentally just fatigues himself, it seems. Yeah. That's what everybody says.
But Dave Allen, he's a tall guy. He's like, what, 6'8", maybe?
David Price, yeah, he's huge.
Or David Price, yeah. He's coming off a win over Dave Allen back in July of this year, so a couple months ago. So, I mean, I just remember, I can't get it out of my mind. I just remember David Price getting knocked out by Povetkin. Yeah, I just remember that was a brutal knockout. Like,
he's kind of like
nailed him.
He's kind of like Amir Khan. Like when he gets knocked out, like Price, he gets knocked out.
Yeah, it's like it's a show in and of itself.
Yeah.
It really is. So we'll see. I think that's also a thing we're looking forward to. Is who's the main event? Taylor and Prograis or Chisora and Price?
I know.
That's the question of the night leading up to this Saturday. Also on that card, Ricky Burns, 43-7-1, goes up against friend of the show Lee Selby, 27-2. Selby, at 32 years old, lost his IBF featherweight title to Josh Warrington last May. And at that time, I think we touched on that in previous shows that I think Selby was a favorite in that fight.
Oh, yeah, Selby was a huge favorite going into that fight, but that was when around the time the IBF brought in that rehydration clause, where I think it was £10. So when
it kind of affected.
When I was chatting to Selby when he was over here, he was saying that that was one of the things that kind of affected him because he used to rehydrate by quite a lot,
Yeah.
So,
hey, it is what it is. So Selby, after moving up 2 weight divisions, he's fought with cuts above both of his eyes, and this was to beat Omar Douglas. And I always think about Omar Douglas with that hair. He has that long ass hair. In his first bout at lightweight earlier this year, was that the last time he fought? February of this year? Man, that was a long time ago.
He was scheduled to fight Broner.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was like rumors of him and Broner, which I always thought were kind of far fetched because I'm just like, I don't know, because technically Selby was like a 126 pounder, and like it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense.
Money.
You're right, but I mean, like, if Broner went to like the UK to fight him,
maybe, yeah, you could see that.
But who knows? But I think that's a pretty interesting matchup. I think Selby wins this actually kind of comfortably. I like Ricky Burns, but I think Selby beats him comfortably because I really think that Selby still has that hunger and that drive to get back into that title picture, especially now that he's essentially in a new weight class. I think he's going to do it.
I think Selby should win. I think if Selby sticks to his boxing, I think he should win this quite comfortably. I think Ricky Burns is a little bit over the hill. I thought his performance against Crawler, I thought that was kind of like his crossroads fight, and this is, crossroads for both of them, Burns and Selby. I think the loser of this is essentially kind of done. Maybe could stick around at domestic level. Selby's, I think, young enough that he could, win this fight and maybe go on to do a few more things. The only problem I think he has is he was never a huge puncher at featherweight, so moving up 2 divisions.
Yeah, is his power going with him?
Yeah, I don't think his
probably not.
Was going to go with him. So, he'd be in, long distance fights quite a lot, 10, 12 round fights. So,
yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But like I said, that's a fun card. That's a really fun card. And also this Saturday, this is one I'm really looking forward to. This is a good, Saturday's got a really solid matchup of fights.
My wife's going to be happy. Boxing all day from 12 o'clock.
Boxing all day.
Yep, just looking forward to it.
Also this Saturday from the Reno Sparks Convention Center in Reno, Nevada on ESPN Plus for the vacant WBO featherweight world title. Shakur Stevenson, 12-0, goes up against Joet Gonzalez, 23-0. And then there's also like personal bad blood in terms of between both of these guys. I guess Stevenson is supposedly dating Joet Gonzalez's sister or something like that. I think that just makes this matchup a lot more interesting because it has like that personal factor, that drama behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they've been talking smack about each other over the last several months. Joet Gonzalez is a Golden Boy fighter. Shakur Stevenson is a top-ranked fighter. Joet Gonzalez is going to ESPN Top Rank to fight on that network because naturally Stevenson does have the bigger name recognition, so you kind of go where the A side is. I just hope that this fight really lives up to what the hype is about, because I think both kids have a lot to prove, especially Stevenson coming out being a silver medalist. And then Joet, even though he doesn't have the name recognition, like he's been working hard to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Joet doesn't live too far from here, from our studios right here. He doesn't live too far from here. Like he's essentially around the general area, and also his brother Joust Gonzalez, who's I think younger, but he's still developing, of course. But I think Stevenson's gonna take him. I hope it's a great matchup, like just back and forth action, especially with the bad blood. But I just think Stevenson is going to take it.
I agree. I think Stevenson may just take it. I think that he's just the more skilled all-round boxer. The only problem I think Stevenson has is he has that Adrian Broner syndrome, it looks like, where is he going to get into the ring and just, believe he's too good?
Maybe.
Not have to put in the work.
Maybe.
Broner kind of survived in his early career because he was just skilled. He was a talented guy. Like everyone has kind of looked at him and was like, oh, this is going to be the next Floyd Mayweather. And then he started to believe his own hype, wouldn't train, started to just eat whatever he wanted.
No, you're right. Yeah.
He was burning the candle at both ends. He was out partying, throwing money all over nightclubs. And, so far, Stevenson's already had a little run-in with the law. Was it earlier this year?
Yeah.
And I think I'm hoping
that's unfortunate.
I'm hoping that they'll take him. Top Rank will take him. Just wrap him up in cotton wool, because if you look at what he's done in the amateurs and you look at what glimpses we've seen in the pro ranks, he really could be a dominant force at that division.
Right.
But I like Joet Gonzalez. He's done it the right way as a pro. He's 23 and 0.
He's worked hard.
He's worked hard to get to where he is, and I think he was the one who was actually clamoring for this fight.
Yeah,
I think he was the one calling out Stevenson. He said in previous interviews that he's sparred with Stevenson, and he's pretty confident. He said that he's going to beat him.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. Like, oh man, that's what I'm hoping. Like, this is really a fight. Like, I think this is like one of the most intriguing fights of the year, just because like, as boxing fans, obviously we know these fighters, we know what's going on, we know their backgrounds, but like I'm telling you, I'm very intrigued about this fight. I'm very I'm like I even go out on a limb to say I'm more intrigued about this fight than Canelo Kovalev. And
it's another clash of styles.
Yeah,
so you got Stevenson, more of the, I'd still say he has an amateur style. He kind of like comes in and out very quickly, throws combinations. But Joet Gonzalez is another one where he's going to walk you down and really just apply pressure.
Yeah.
So and then it's two undefeated fighters, trying to reach the prime of the career. Like you don't often see. Normally, you'd get Shakur Stevenson facing some undefeated Argentinian that we've never heard of, and then 3-4 fights time, then we'd see the Joet Gonzalez fight.
Oh yeah.
So it's good that they've put them together.
Yeah, I'm very happy that happened because that's how we usually see it in the sport of boxing. When there's a vacant title, these promoters they like put the guy that they want the title on against some journeyman
that just suddenly appears in the top 15.
Where did he come from?
Yeah.
So their guy can get a strap on them. That's usually how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, I'm glad that you're putting two young guys, undefeated guys, against each other, which on paper should be a great matchup.
Mm-hmm.
It should. And I think, obviously, Golden Boy, man, imagine how happy Oscar De La Hoya would be if Joet Gonzalez can bring a title, another world championship to Golden Boy. Because, who does Golden Boy have as world champions right now? Canelo?
God, that's a good question. I didn't expect that one.
Who else?
Canelo. Out of the big names, I can't really think of anyone. You've got the...
Cancio,
that's true. Then the young guy lost it, didn't he? And Angel got knocked out.
Yeah.
That's about it. You got Virgil Ortiz obviously on his way up.
Yeah, Virgil
Ryan
Ortiz
Garcia on his way up.
But I'm talking about like actual people with world titles. Because obviously, like we know when you might you might not have a name, but if you have a world title in the sport of boxing, you're able to at least your talent's able to keep it. Then that'll still make you some type of money and make your promoter some type of money and be able to put you in cards, around wherever, Southern California, Nevada, New York, whatever. So, and then Joet Gonzalez is Hispanic, lives in Southern California, and if you can put the title on him, it could work. It could work. Like I remember when Cancio won the title from Machado, I remember I talked to somebody who said that Oscar De La Hoya mentioned that he was like, oh yeah, I can do a lot of big things with Cancio at Fantasy Springs, because you look at it as a business. Obviously the last two times that Cancio's fought there, especially after he beat Machado the first time and then rematched him, that place was sold out because he's by nearby. Well, Blythe is just an hour, 2 hours past the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California. I talked to somebody who told me that De La Hoya had told them, they're like, yeah, I can make good business with Cancio at Fantasy Springs because he sells it out. He gets all his people to show up, especially from the Blythe area, which is true. And I think with Joet Gonzalez, it's the same thing, especially if he gets a world title. He's obviously going to be mentioned a lot more in boxing press, boxing media. He's going to be in rankings and all this stuff. His name's going to get out there more. And like I said, he's Hispanic. You put him out at in Carson at the StubHub and stuff. I think that's he needs to penetrate through that ceiling right there. If he can get that world title, then obviously it's great. It's great, and Golden Boy would love it because they need another world champion. They do. They need it.
Just look at it from this angle. If Shakur Stevenson goes in there and knocks him out, he leaves. Yeah. He leaves with the WBO world title and his sister.
I know, man. What a
that's a bad day.
Seriously, man. Like seriously, like that
that's
man,
a bad day.
You just saying it out loud makes it even more real.
Oh man, that's a bad day.
That's a bad day. But that's on ESPN Plus from the Reno Convention Center, which I think is kind of cool that they made it there because I thought for sure like they would have made Joet go to like New York or New Jersey where
it's random though.
It is random.
It's not. Stevenson's been fighting a lot in Newark, right?
He has, yeah, but that because he's from New Jersey or something like that. But I mean, like, if you think about it, Stevenson and Gonzalez can't like put butts in seats at the MGM Grand or something like that, like and all the venues, Thomas and Mack Center, MGM Grand, Mandalay Bay, obviously T-Mobile, like this isn't the type of fight that has a marquee name to put butts in seats in those places.
But it's. Me and you looked at going, and it was 6-7 hour drive for us.
Well, it's far. It's past Vegas.
So
or it's like I don't know, but it's further.
So it's going to be even further, obviously, for people flying from New Jersey. So it's kind of how many people are going to sell it out? Like
I don't know.
I don't think they've crossed over yet. If they win the world title,
but it also works for Top Rank. Top Rank's based out of Las Vegas, like in terms of logistics and stuff like that. They don't have to. put stuff on flights. They can just drive and stuff like that. You know, they save a little bit of money.
Intrigued to see if it sells out. They've priced it well. They have priced it well.
No, they have. So, I mean, I think they needed to just because it's in Reno.
Yeah, true.
So, I'm really excited for that fight for the vacant WBO featherweight world title. So let's see who comes out on top. Top Rank or Golden Boy in another matchup. Also on that card, Joshua Greer Jr., 21-1-1 for the WBC Continental Americas Bantamweight and WBO NABO title. Man, these freaking alphabet titles, I swear. Greer of Chicago will defend his original belt in a 10-round fight against Nieves. Is coming off a controversial 12-round decision against Nikolai Potapov. Is that how you say it? Potapov? This past July. Nieves, a Cleveland, Ohio native, has won 2 fights in a row since suffering back-to-back losses. I mean, what do you think? I think Greer. I'm leaning towards Greer on this one.
I think he's definitely one of the up and coming fighters in that division. He seems to have everything. He had an early loss in his career, but he's bounced back since. He's got a good image, fights really well. He's exciting. And you can see that Top Rank kind of pushed him. They're sticking him on these cards as like a co-main. Just second and third fight down from the main event and stuff like that. So. He's an exciting fighter. I think someone may have a breakout year come next year. You could see him, main event in some events. He's definitely one to watch.
We'll see. But that's going to be a solid card, I'm telling you. You got Taylor Prograis and then Stevenson Gonzalez. That's a really, obviously from a boxing fan perspective, those are great cards.
Saturday's a good day.
That's a really good card.
Taylor Prograis early in the afternoon. And
I know it's not Canelo fighting, Floyd, Pacquiao, obviously the big names. But in terms of competition, Saturday's got a great day of boxing. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to these. And it's good that one happens in the afternoon, and then obviously Stevenson Gonzalez later in the evening. So kind of give some time in between.
It's going to be all day, Saturday, all day.
All day, 12 noon to 4 a.m., just like you guys party over there and across the pond. And also, Showtime. Showtime is back.
Showtime do boxing?
Showtime Boxing is back. Also this weekend from the Santander Arena in Reading, Pennsylvania, Erickson Lubin, 21-1-1, goes up against Nathaniel Gallimore, 21-3-1. Lubin's only loss was against Charlo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So has he fought since then?
Yeah, he's fought since then.
He has, right?
His original opponent for this was Terrell Geisha.
That's right.
Geisha dropped out, I think, due to a hand injury, I believe.
That's right.
It's one of those fights where Lubin needs to get back into the win column.
Yeah.
Needs to kind of show the pedigree that.
I think he will. I mean, I think he will. I think Lubin can still, make some good money.
They were pushing him hard. That Charlo fight was kind of like a clash of two really big up-and-coming names at that point. And then, obviously, Charlo just knocked him out early on. And then, Lubin's obviously been back, had to drop back down, come back up. And Gallimore can be a tricky opponent. So this is kind of, the Geisha fight was a good fight. Both guys still coming up. This, I think Lubin should win, but Gallimore can be tricky.
I think the bigger story is the Showtime. It's on a Showtime card, after all of these rumors and stuff that PBC's going on Fox, and there's strenuous relationship with Showtime, and then Steven Espinosa's tweeted stuff, cryptic tweets saying, this and that.
They're leaving boxing by the looks of it.
It seems like it. And it's unfortunate too, because I like Showtime.
They probably have the best announcing team.
They're obviously their commentary team. If you put them up against all the ones that are current right now, DAZN, ESPN, all those guys, Fox especially. Obviously, Showtime, because they've been together the longest, they know how to work together. They obviously, it's essentially unfair because they're the biggest veterans in the sport, and they've already been doing it together for a long time. But Showtime has the guys right now in terms of the best commentary team. But it does look like they're kind of going by the wayside, and Showtime is kind of,
having fights drop out, the Clarissa Shields fight,
yeah,
stuff like that. They've had a terrible year in terms of the fights that they've had given, and especially if the Wilder Fury fight ends up on Fox, which tends to be the rumor. If you were Espinoza, you'd be like, looking at PBC and saying like,
I think
what
that's
the hell
the nail,
are you giving us?
I think that's the nail in the coffin for a PBC Showtime relationship after that. I think if the Wilder fight does end up being Fox ESPN pay-per-view, joint pay-per-view, I think that's when you're really going to see like PBC Showtime, like, okay, yeah, it's over.
I agree.
That relationship is essentially over. So, but who knows? Who knows? And also on that card, Robert Easter Jr. goes up against Adrian Granados. This is actually a very, very intriguing matchup as well.
Yep.
Easter Jr.'s only loss was against Mikey Garcia when there was a unification matchup out here at Staples Center in downtown LA. Mikey Garcia beat him by decision and even knocked him down, I think, once during the middle rounds.
Early.
And Adrian Granados, just for some reason, is always up there. He's like that fighter who, like, you have to fight before you fight the elite fighters.
If you look at his resume, dude, he's been in with everybody.
He's been winning everybody.
Yeah.
Danny Garcia, Sean Porter. Who else?
Well, I'd have to have a look.
But you're right, though. He's been in with a ton of guys, a ton of names.
Yeah, he's been in with everybody over the years. Danny Garcia made quick work of him, though.
Is this at 135 or was this at 140? What?
He's been in with Sean Porter, Adrian Broner, Felix Diaz,
Danny Garcia,
Frankie Gomez back in the day, 2011.
Wow. That's wild. Frankie Gomez. What a name. What a throwback. I wonder. That's an if question. What if? What if question with Frankie Gomez?
You could do a whole show on Frankie,
Man, I think we should one day. I know there's some fans out there who would be like, what? Who's Frankie Gomez? Google him. Google Frankie Gomez Golden Boy, and if you don't know who he is, Google him and then see.
His last fight was against, he beat Mauricio Herrera.
Yeah, he did.
That's...
So, and he fights at 147, right?
Yeah.
Imagine, damn it, now that you bring it up, imagine him if he would have kept going, and then now with Virgil Ortiz fighting at the same weight, being under the same promoter, like, holy crap.
I remember I came over here and I was chatting to Freddie Roach, and Freddie Roach was training at the time. Manny Pacquiao, I think he still had Demir Khan and Frankie at the same time, and he said that the best prospect he had
was Frankie Gomez. Yeah. But I mean, the streets, the lifestyle.
Remember Tanisha told us when she was here that she's friends with him.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's crazy, but who knows? Life bites you like that sometimes. And also touching on Terrence Crawford was also had his fight announced with the co-main event of, which actually should be the main event, but it's not going to be, but it should be the main event. Teofimo Lopez gets his first world title shot against Richard Comey. And then Terrence Crawford is going up against Mean Machine, Kavalauskas.
It's funny, they just took his name off the poster.
I know, right?
And they just put The Machine.
I think that was. But you know what though? From a marketing standpoint, that's the best route you can go.
True.
It really is. So I think whoever made that decision at Top Rank, like, hey, let's actually call him Mean Machine because that's his nickname instead of Kavalauskas, because from a marketing standpoint, that's the way to go. So props to whoever made that decision to put Mean Machine out there. But I mean, like, people have been saying this for months already. I saw an interview with Robert Garcia like last year or something where they asked him about Terrence Crawford, who's he going to fight because he can't come to the PBC. They're not working with him. And he was like, look, he's going to fight this guy, and then he's going to fight Kavalauskas and stuff like that. And, like, people have been saying for months, like, obviously, Crawford, he has a WBO world title at welterweight, 147 pounds. But all the welterweight champions, all the names are on the PBC side, and obviously they're not playing ball. Like, both sides it's not working. So I think it was smart for Top Rank to combine these cards because I think they know that if they would have put Crawford and Kavalauskas as its own event and Comey and Teofimo Lopez as its own event, they probably wouldn't do as well separately, especially Crawford Kavalauskas, unless you put them in Omaha, which I'm sure there was debate about that. But I think it was a great move to just combine them and put them in New York at Madison Square Garden. I think that was a good move because, what are you going to do? Like, obviously everybody wants to see Crawford in there with like a Porter, a Danny Garcia, a Thurman, a Pacquiao, Spence, But is it going to happen anytime soon? Probably not.
No, I agree. I think sticking it in the backyard of, Comey trains out of New York, and I think Teofimo Lopez is now living out of New York and maybe even training out of New York instead of Vegas now.
So. Who does Crawford fight after this?
Kell Brook.
But even then, though, like it's just like,
no, I agree. I think until something huge happens, it seems like he's just going to be going through the run-of-the-mill fighters. Unfortunately, for us in the PBC, are going to just keep them at home. Top Rank are going to keep him at home until it gets to the point where.
I would really love to be a fly on the wall with like those conversations, because like you could tell, especially like with the response that like Terrence Crawford says in interviews, and then I think his sister like posts something on social media like within the last couple of weeks. Because people obviously talking smack about Kavaliauskas as the opponent, that Crawford needs to fight these other guys across the street or whatever. And obviously the boxing politics is really heavy with that. I mean, it is. It is what it is. But, I mean, like, who's he going to fight after this? Like, they were, like you mentioned Kell Brook, but they were trying to make that fight reportedly earlier this year, and Brook's price tag was just too high, and Top Rank didn't want to pay it.
I think he's looking just for one and done. I think he knows that
that's smart. That's
physically he's done.
That's smart. I mean, like, what do you, I don't know. I don't know what people expect. Like, I think Al Heyman and PBC are really going to, like, Al Heyman's really going as far as he can go to keep Crawford away from his stable. Literally, that's why he's putting all the. I mean, look at the last couple of years. He just rotated his fighters together: Thurman, Porter, Garcia, Thurman. Porter, Garcia, Pacquiao, Thurman, Spence, Porter. He's just. I mean, and everybody knew that, especially when he had them all lined up and they created the PBC. Everybody knew that it was just going to rotate. Everybody knew that. And then when Crawford signed the multi-year extension with Top Rank, people knew, like, well, it's just gonna, like, everybody knew that this time was gonna come where you're gonna get blocked out. And everybody knew that. Like, you don't, like, I mean, I get it. He signed a pretty lucrative deal with ESPN, Top Rank, and money-wise, I don't think anybody blames him from a business standpoint. But from a competitive legacy standpoint, I mean, like, what are you going to do there? I think he's getting blocked out.
I think he has to force the issue. Oscar De La Hoya has openly said, and, I think we've touched on before, that Canelo has forced his way into fights. Like, he didn't want any part of Lara. Canelo wanted it, so I think it's going to have to get to the point where Crawford's such a big name and Spence is such a big name that they just start being like WWE style, and after every fight, like, I want Crawford, I want Spence.
I mean,
they force the issue.
I understand that Crawford is obviously one of the bigger names for Top Rank and ESPN, and obviously ESPN doesn't want to lose him to fight on another network. I understand that, but honestly, if I was Crawford, I would do like what Jose Ramirez did. Jose Ramirez went to DAZN, went to Texas to unify against Maurice Hooker, and he beat Maurice Hooker in an exciting fight on DAZN in his home turf. Like, honestly, because obviously the networks, that's also an issue. Like, oh no, you have to come to ESPN, or it'll be a joint pay-per-view, or one of them wants to go to Fox or something like that. Like, honestly, if I was Crawford, because obviously we know Crawford he passes the eye test, but we really haven't seen him against one of these top tier welterweights. We really haven't. And I know people say, oh, well, he unified 140 and stuff. Yeah, that's impressive. But I mean, he beat Ndongo.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he beat like the likes of Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman or like a Pacquiao and stuff like that. And he's in essentially the money weight class, or one of arguably the money weight classes. So, I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do there? So, I mean, like I said, if I was Crawford right now, I would tell Top Rank, hey, forget it. Tell them I'll go to Fox. I'll go to Fox. I'll fight them on their network. Let's do it. So at least Al Heyman's like, okay, fine. We're going to get the ratings. We're going to get all this and that. Like, that's probably the best deal we're going to get. I'll go to Fox, Like, I think Crawford should. Like, if Crawford really believes in his ability that he can beat these guys and stuff like that, which obviously he definitely has a shot, tell Top Rank, like, forget it. Let me go to Fox. I'm going to win. I'll bring the belt back to ESPN. I don't know what other choice he has. I really don't.
No, I agree. I mean, they could always, bank on their guy, like you say, and like he's going to
They banked on Ramirez going to to DAZN, and he did it.
Yeah, exactly. Because then he comes back a bigger commodity than he was before he left. Or,
Yeah.
Even do it like, okay, we get this fight, and then you get this fight, and sort it out to get equal type of fights. Where one's on yours, one's on ours.
Yeah.
It's going to get to the point where, people's legacies are going to be tarnished because, that fight never happened.
That's true.
And they're young enough at the minute that, everyone wants to see it. So, either the fans are going to have to push for it to the point where they can't keep turning it down, or Crawford and Spence and, a combination of those guys. I'd love to see Crawford against Porter after Porter's performance against Spence. Any of those guys, all the different styles and stuff like that. So
I don't know.
You feel for Crawford, really.
I feel like it's a broken record. We keep talking about this situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's relevant right now because his fight just got announced and he's fighting a guy, obviously, that, Kavalauskas, I understand that Top Rank, they have to keep him active. They have to keep him fighting. He has to defend his belt. But, it's getting to that point where, it's
do or die. Let's see it.
Do or die.
Yeah.
You can't really do anything more. But once again, guys, thank you for tuning in again. Whether you're a consistent weekly listener, we appreciate you, or maybe this is your first time listening. Keep checking us out. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public. We're all over the place. We're trying to secure a guest for next week. So be on the lookout for that.
Big review show, the big preview of
Canelo Kovalev. So that's going to be a big show. We're going to make our predictions and talk about that fight. It is an intriguing fight. Canelo going up from 160 to 175, taking on WBO world champion at light heavyweight Sergey Kovalev. And I guarantee you Andre Ward is going to be watching that fight. You don't think, real quickly, if Canelo calls out Andre Ward after, does Andre Ward come back?
Ooh.
Or should we leave that answer for next week? We'll leave it for next week. Hold that thought until next Monday, Mike. Once again, guys, thank you for listening. I'm Danny Z. For my co-host, Michael Shepard, this is the last round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.